They thought it would be easy. Ambassador Keller stood on the bridge of his shining flagship. His golden skin glowed under the lights as he looked at the blue planet ahead. It looked calm, it looked small, it looked weak. He smiled. This would be world number 848, another mark on the record of the Empire, another conquest, another surrender. That was how it always went. The strong ruled, the weak obeyed. That was the law of the galaxy. Around him, the bridge was filled with officers from 12 different species. All of them had once fought against the Empire, all of them now served it. That was the lesson the Empire had taught them. Resistance was hopeless. Conquest was destiny. General Vexron moved closer. A giant of red skin and 4 massive arms, he crossed them now over his chest. His deep voice shook the deck. The humans have not answered our message. Should we send another? Give them time, Keller replied. Fear takes time. They must understand what they face. 3 days earlier, the Empire had sent its standard command. Surrender now. Hand over your technology, accept integration into the Empire, or be destroyed. The words had brought silence. Not fear, not begging, silence. On the main screen, the Earth hung silent in space. White clouds, blue oceans, green lands. It looked like any other world. It looked ordinary. It looked harmless. The fleet science officer spoke in her clicking insect voice. They call their world Earth. They have been in space less than 2 centuries. They use chemical rockets. They have small colonies on their moon and on the 4th planet Mars. Nothing impressive. Their largest ship is smaller than our shuttles. Keller laughed. Chemical rockets. How had these primitives even touched the stars? General Vexron growled again. Why waste time with words? We could take this world in minutes. Because the Empire is not barbaric, Keller said firmly, every species is given a choice. Join us willingly or join us by force. Either way, they join. Silence fell again on the bridge. Outside the flagship, 46 warships waited in perfect formation. Each carried fire enough to burn a city to ash. Together, they could shatter a world. In orbit of the moon, Commander Jake Morrison sat in his chair on Luna Station. His brown hair was touched with gray. His eyes were steady. 20 years of service had taught him calm, but now calm was hard. This was no ordinary threat. This was the future of Earth itself. Lieutenant Carol Hughes turned from her station. We are still receiving their message. All frequencies, the same demand. Jake nodded. The words were clear enough. Surrender or die. Dr. Lisa Bennett looked up from her console. She had studied their signals for days. The pattern is obvious, she said. This is not a message made for us. This is a script they have used before. The grammar is too perfect. The delivery too practiced. They have sent this same speech to many worlds. Jake felt a cold weight settle in his chest. How many worlds had heard it? How many had surrendered? How many had been destroyed? Any word from Earth Command? He asked quietly. The Admiral is meeting with the President. Carol said, no decision yet. On the screen, the alien fleet hung in silence, dark shapes against the light of the stars. They were elegant, curved, shimmering with deadly power. They looked like works of art, but art made for killing. Captain Ryan Walsh watched from Freedom Station, humanity's most powerful outpost in space. It was little more than a box of metal with weapons fixed to its skin, but it was home. How many ships, he asked. 47, confirmed. His officer answered, each one bigger than anything we have built. The largest is 5 kilometers long. Ryan whistled softly. 5 kilometers, larger than a city, and their energy readings. Off the charts, the alien flagships alone produce more power than our entire grid on Earth, and that is only what we can see. Ryan stared at the screen. Humanity had long known this day might come. They had wondered if they were alone. Now they had their answer, and their new neighbors had come with war. Movement, the officer said. 3 of their ships are breaking formation. On the display, 3 alien vessels glided toward Earth orbit. Smooth, silent, effortless. Moments later, Earth satellites went dark, not destroyed, not broken, simply turned off like lamps. Another message arrived. The aliens called it a demonstration, proof of their power, and then they gave humanity 72 hours to decide. Commander Jake Morrison closed his eyes. 72 hours to choose between surrender and death. The weight of every soul on Earth pressed against him. But far beyond the reach of alien sensors, something stirred in the dark. A shadow long prepared, a force waiting, a secret older than the invasion itself. The aliens believed humanity was primitive. They believed humans were defenseless. They believed they already knew the ending of this story. But they were wronged. And soon the galaxy would learn what happens when you threaten Earth. Admiral Patricia Cole sat in her office on Earth. Reports from every corner of the world filled her desk. Politicians, generals, scientists, each voice asked the same question: what do we do? The answer was simple: surrender. That was what history had taught the galaxy. The aliens were stronger. Their technology far beyond anything Earth could hope to match. Their fleet could destroy every station, every settlement, every city. The outcome should have been certain. But Patricia Cole was not ready to surrender. Not yet. She remembered the history of her people. Humanity had faced ice ages that froze the land, plagues that swept across continents, wars that burned nations to ashes. Each time the end had seemed near, and each time humanity endured, they adapted, they survived, they fought. She picked up the secure phone on her desk. Her voice was steady. "This is Admiral Cole. Begin Operation Nightfall." Somewhere in the deep silence between planets, ancient systems awoke. Engines that had waited for decades came to life. Weapons hidden for generations began their cold startup sequence. Humanity's true answer had been waiting, hidden in the dark, silent, patient. 3 days passed. Ambassador Keller paced the bridge of his ship. His golden skin no longer glowed. It looked pale, dull. Frustration replaced arrogance. No species had ever taken this long to answer. Most surrendered within hours. Still no word from the humans. He asked again. "Nothing official," his aide whispered. "They continue normal communications with their colonies, as if we are not even here." General Vexron slammed a massive fist into the panel beside him. "This is an insult. We should burn one of their cities." "Patience," Keller said. "Fear grows when it is given time." But Dr. Zindai spoke, her insect voice clicking with unease. "Ambassador, I detect strange energy readings in the outer system." "What kind of readings?" "Very faint, perhaps solar winds, perhaps nothing." Or, she hesitated, or something large moving out there, but that seems impossible. Keller waved the thought aside. Impossible. Humans had only chemical rockets. There was nothing out there to fear. But far beyond Neptune's orbit, Captain Steve Harrison stood on the bridge of a ship that did not exist in any record. The UES Retribution, a battleship forged in secrecy, a kilometer of steel, exotic alloys, weapons humanity had never admitted to building. "Status report." "All systems operational," the engineer replied. "Reactors at 90%, weapons online, stealth field steady." "How long to effective range?" 18 hours at current speed." "Good." Steve Harrison's gray eyes were calm. Surprise was everything. The weapons officer looked up. "Captain, can we truly face them? 47 ships, more firepower than anything in history." Steve spoke quietly. "That is what they think. That is what everyone thinks. That is why this will work." The chief scientist entered with a data pad. "The final analysis is complete. We know their weaknesses." "Tell me." The display lit up with alien vessels. Their energy was powerful but wasteful, their shields strong but rigid, their weapons mighty but inefficient. They built for size, for strength, not for thought. Meaning they build bigger, louder, stronger, but never smarter. Steve Harrison allowed a grim smile, and we did. The Retribution glided through darkness. A shadow among stars, unseen, untouchable, it moved closer, waiting. On Earth, President Helen Foster sat in the Situation Room, the weight of the world heavy on her shoulders. She asked her admiral the question, "What options remain?" "None," Patricia Cole answered. "If we fight them openly, we lose." "And unofficially?" The admiral's lips curved. "Unofficially. We have been preparing for this day since the year 2157. The room fell silent. Every leader knew the date. the year humanity had first caught whispers of alien signals. "Tell them," the president ordered. The admiral pressed a control. Documents lit the screen. Images of wreckage, alien wreckage. 3 scout ships had fallen within the system across a century. Ships meant to be invisible, but Earth had found them, studied them, broken them apart. General Murphy leaned forward. "You are saying we had alien technology for 100 years. Not only that, we improved it. While the galaxy built larger ships, we built unseen ones. While they prepared for conquest, we prepared for survival." The screen shifted again. New images, ships blocky and angular, Retribution-class battleships, 7 built in secrecy. Each more powerful than anything in the galaxy, each completely invisible until we choose otherwise. 7 against 47, the president said. "One would be enough," Admiral Cole replied. On Luna Station, Commander Jake Morrison stared at the enemy fleet, waiting, watching. Their elegant vessels hung like blades in the void. A message arrived from Earth Command. Admiral Cole appeared on screen. "Jake, send our response." "What words, Admiral?" "Tell them humanity has considered. Tell them we respectfully decline, and tell them to prepare for our formal response." Jake's breath caught. Decline? No one had ever declined. But he gave the order. The message was sent. On the alien flagship, silence fell. The words played across the bridge. Declined. Dr. Zindai's voice trembled. No species has ever refused. General Vexron growled. Then they do not understand. But Ambassador Keller felt something he had not felt in centuries. Doubt. For the first time, the Empire faced an answer it had never expected. Through the outer system, other shadows moved. The vengeance near Jupiter, the justice near Saturn, the freedom gliding from the asteroid belt. Humanity had been silent. Humanity had been patient. Humanity had been watching for 100 years. Now their response was coming. And the galaxy would never be the same again. 6 days passed. Ambassador Keller no longer paced with pride. He paced with anger. Still no answer from Earth. Still silence. No species had ever defied the Empire this long. This was not patience. This was defiance. General Vexron rumbled with fury. "This is mockery. This is insult. We are the Empire. We do not wait on primitives." His 4 arms shook with rage. "Target their moon. Fire a warning." Keller hesitated. He felt the weight of the council behind him. He felt the eyes of his crew. Finally, he gave the order, something to remind them who we are, something to make them tremble. The flagship's cannon charged. Power enough to split continents gathered at its core. A lance of energy roared across the void. It struck the moon with the force of 100 nuclear bombs. On Luna Station, alarms screamed. Impact imminent, 10 seconds. Jake Morrison gripped his chair, his voice steady even as the deck shook. All personnel brace for impact. But the impact never came. The energy vanished, absorbed, silent, gone. Jake whispered in disbelief, "What the hell?" On the alien flagship, Dr. Zindai stared at her instruments. Her voice broke. "Ambassador, direct hit confirmed, yet there is no damage, no crater. The energy has disappeared." "Impossible," Admiral Vexthari spat. "There are no defenses like this." Captain Morok stepped forward, his scarred face grim, "Unless they use absorption technology." "Absorption," Keller repeated. "Yes," Morok said, "a way to capture and store energy rather than deflect it, but the power needed would be vast. Entire worlds could not supply it, and these are supposed to be primitives." General Vexron growled, "Then we strike harder, all weapons ready, target their home world." But before the order could be given, sensors screamed. New contact, bearing 27 Mark V, a large vessel approaching fast. "How large?" Keller demanded. "Larger than our flagship, much larger." On the screen, darkness shifted. At first it looked like an asteroid, cold, lifeless. Then the shadow peeled away, the truth emerged. A ship, human, enormous. The UES Retribution dropped its stealth like a predator showing its teeth. A kilometer of steel and fire, its design sharp, angular, aggressive, no art, no grace, only purpose. On its bridge, Captain Steve Harrison stood, calm, focused, his crew silent at their stations. "Open a channel," he said. "Channel open." His voice carried across the void. "Attention, alien vessels. This is Captain Steve Harrison of the Earth Defense Ship Retribution. You are in violation of Earth space. State your intentions." On the alien flagship, silence fell heavy. Sensors failed to make sense of the readings. Energy unmatched, power beyond record. "They are unlike anything in our database," Dr. Zindai stammered. Then the alien fleet opened fire. 47 warships unleashed their fury. Beams of plasma, bolts of light, weapons that could burn a planet to ash, all converged on one target. On the Retribution, the crew watched the storm. The hull drank the fire. Exotic armor turned destruction into strength. No explosions, no damage, only silence. "That is not possible," Admiral Vexthari whispered. Steve Harrison stood calm, his voice even. "That was impressive. Now allow me to show you our mining equipment." "Lieutenant Ben Carter, target that asteroid, the city-sized one." "Target locked." "Fire." The weapon did not roar, it whispered. A thin line of light touched the rock. For a moment nothing happened. Then the asteroid vanished. A perfect sphere of space simply ceased to exist. Energy flowed into the Retribution. The void remained where stone had been. On alien ships, alarms howled. Calculations failed. The numbers were beyond measure, beyond reason. General Vexron's voice shook. "What kind of weapon is that?" Captain Morak stared. "That was not a weapon. That was a tool, a mining tool." Dr. Kevin Turner's voice came across the channel. Cheerful. "That was our asteroid processing system. Standard. 98% efficient. Converts matter directly into energy. Very useful." Cold silence fell on the alien bridge. If that was their tool, what would their weapons be? Then more shadows broke from the dark. Vengeance, justice, freedom. One by one human ships appeared, each radiating impossible power, each invisible until now. "How many?" Keller whispered. 17 confirmed, perhaps more. We cannot scan them fully. Captain Steve Harrison's voice returned. Calm, steady. "This is only 1% of our defensive fleet. The rest are on patrol or stationed elsewhere." Vexron clenched his fists. "He is lying, he must be lying." But Morak shook his head. "Look at their ships, built not for display, built for war, the kind of war that ends civilizations." On the Retribution, Amy Rodriguez spoke. "Captain, their fleet is destabilizing. Some ships prepare to retreat." "Let them," Steve said. "We are not here to fight, we are here to talk." His voice carried across the void again. "Ambassador Keller, it is time to discuss terms. This time it will be your surrender." On the alien bridge, fear spread at last. Faces pale, voices silent. The hunters realized they were prey. And the age of fear belonged no longer to the Empire. It belonged to humanity. Ambassador Keller had never known fear like this. His golden skin had faded to a dull, pale shade. Around him, his officers stared in silence. Every face carried the same truth. The Empire had walked into a trap. 17 human ships now filled their sensors, each one impossible, each one radiating power they could not measure. Their fleet of 47 warships was no longer the hammer, it was the nail. "What are your orders?" his aide whispered. Keller looked at General Vexron. The giant warrior sat heavy in his chair, his forearms limp, his voice broken. "We cannot win." Dr. Zindai clicked nervously at her console. "Ambassador. Their energy readings are beyond calculation. Their hulls ignore our weapons. Their systems violate every known law. Nothing in our database explains them." Admiral Vexthari's voice was faint. "If they choose to strike us, we are finished." Keller forced his throat to work. "Open a channel, request negotiations." On the Retribution, Steve Harrison stood steady. The alien request came through. His face calm, his voice measured, patch them in. The image of Ambassador Keller appeared on the main screen. The proud ruler who had spoken with arrogance was gone. In his place stood a being who understood loss. "Captain Harrison," Keller began, "I believe there has been a misunderstanding. Perhaps we can discuss matters as civilized beings." Steve gave a small smile. "Of course, I will invite 3 representatives aboard the Retribution. Yourself, Dr. Zindai, and Captain Morak. Our accommodations will be most educational." Keller swallowed. To enter the human ship was to stand at their mercy. But he had no choice. "Very well, we will come." 1 hour later, a shuttle approached the Retribution. Its design was graceful, curved like art come alive. The human shuttle that met it was blocky and heavy, a brick with engines, yet the brick carried the power of a storm. Inside the docking bay, Dr. Kevin Turner greeted them. His white coat made him look harmless, but the walls around him shimmered with impossible systems, weapons that defied sense, engines that bent the air itself. "Welcome aboard," Kevin said brightly. "I am Chief Scientist. The captain asked me to give you a short tour before your meeting." Ambassador Keller's eyes darted across the bay. Every surface glowed with strength. Every shadow hummed with hidden power. Captain Morak whispered, "This ship should not exist." Kevin smiled. "Oh, the Retribution is an older design, nearly 15 years old." Dr. Zindai froze. "Older design. Impossible. Your technology is centuries beyond us." Kevin gestured for them to follow. They walked past corridors of steel and light. Windows opened to reveal engines that twisted space itself. Weapons that looked more like equations than machines. "Humans have always been skilled at building tools to fight," Kevin said softly. "We have had a long history of practice." They passed engineering. Amy Rodriguez waved from her station. She smiled casually while shaping energies that alien scientists would spend centuries trying to understand. Keller's voice trembled. "How did you build this without contact with the galaxy?" Kevin stopped. His expression grew sharp. "Who said we had no contact? We found your scouts, ships meant to be invisible. They crashed. We learned from them, and we improved them." Keller felt his stomach turn to ice. Scouts. The Empire had sent scouts for centuries. Few had ever failed until now. "Yes," Kevin continued, "you build larger, stronger, louder. But humans think differently. Sometimes smaller is better. Sometimes hidden is better. Sometimes you must simply change the rules." They reached the bridge. Steve Harrison stood waiting. His command center was pure function, no curves, no grace. Every surface crowded with displays. It was the place of warriors, not artists. "Thank you for coming," Steve said. "I hope the tour was enlightening." Keller forced his voice calm. "If you had this power for so long, why reveal it now? You could have hidden forever." Steve turned to the screen. Outside, alien ships hovered surrounded by human steel, because hiding was never our plan. "We have been watching your empire for decades. We learned your language. We studied your conquests. We understand your weakness." Admiral Vexthari appeared as a hologram from her ship, her blue skin pale. "My government authorizes me to negotiate withdrawal." "That is reasonable," Steve replied, "but withdrawal is not enough." Her voice sharpened. "What do you mean?" Steve turned back to the alien delegation. "We know what you do to worlds you conquer. We know of the billions enslaved. We know of the 847 civilizations destroyed. Humanity has never tolerated bullies. You represent the largest bully in history." Keller's voice cracked. "What do you want?" Steve's answer was simple. "Surrender. Complete surrender. You will return to your home systems. You will announce the balance of power has changed. Any aggression against humanity or our allies will bring swift retaliation." "Allies?" Dr. Zindai asked. "You have allies?" "Not yet," Steve smiled faintly. "But we will. Every world you crushed will want protection from a species that can actually provide it." A new image shimmered onto the bridge. President Helen Foster, her voice firm, "Ambassador, Earth rejects your demand. Instead, we offer you choice. Leave our space peacefully. Spread word that humanity now stands as a galactic power, or continue this path and face the consequences." Keller looked around, every human face calm, steady. They were not bluffing. These were not threats. These were promises. His voice was weak. "How many ships do you truly have?" Steve gestured to a tactical display. Red dots filled the screen. Hundreds. This is only local defense. Our main fleets are stationed far beyond. We have built for a century. We have prepared. We have waited for this day. The aliens stared. For the first time, the truth was undeniable. Humanity was not a weakling species. Humanity was the storm. Ambassador Keller stood in the communication chamber of the Retribution. The screen before him showed the Galactic Council. 12 leaders from 12 species stared back. Their faces carried disbelief, panic, fear. "Repeat your report," the High Chancellor demanded. Keller drew a long breath. The humans refused integration. When we attempted to demonstrate power, they revealed technology beyond anything in our records. A single human ship defeated our fleet. 47 warships, without damage. The War Council General slammed a fist. "Impossible. Primitives with chemical rockets cannot defeat us." "They do not have chemical rockets." Keller answered quietly. "They never did. That was what they allowed us to believe." Through the chamber window, he saw human officers working calmly at their stations. Engineers spoke softly to scientists, their movements casual, confident. Their technology flowed around them like water. Science Coordinator Malfara leaned forward. "How long have they been watching us?" "Nearly a century." Keller said, "They have records of our conquest of Valder. They know the destruction of Kepler-7. They have studied us the way we study insects." The council chamber fell silent. These events were secrets known only to the highest levels, yet humanity spoke of them freely. Captain Steve Harrison entered the chamber. President Foster appeared beside him in shimmering projection. Their expressions were calm, almost relaxed. "Council members," the president began, "I am Helen Foster. I believe Ambassador Keller has explained our position, but I wish to speak directly." The High Chancellor leaned forward. "Surely we can reach peace. The galaxy is vast. There is space for both of us." "I agree," Helen replied, "but the age of conquest is finished. Any species that seeks freedom will find it under human protection." The War Council General roared, "You cannot protect the galaxy." Steve stepped forward, his voice quiet. "Actually, we can. Would you like to see our deployments?" A new display filled the council chamber. The galaxy itself hung in light. Dots appeared across its arms, first hundreds, then thousands. "These are our patrols," Steve explained. "We have been building fleets for 100 years, in hidden shipyards, in silence. Each battle group can destroy your largest armadas." Science Coordinator Malfara whispered, "How many ships?" "Enough," Steve replied. Dr. Kevin Turner appeared from his laboratory. Behind him, alien scientists studied human devices with frantic attention. Kevin smiled. "The principles are simple once understood." He held up a small cube. "This is a human power cell. It generates more energy than your greatest fusion reactors, runs 50 years without maintenance, costs $12 to build." The council gasped. Their most advanced reactors cost billions, required endless service, yet this human cell could be carried in a pocket. "The secret is that we work with the universe instead of against it. While you built larger hammers, we learned to reshape reality." Admiral Patricia Cole appeared on the feed, her tone sharp. "Humanity seeks peace, not conquest, not empire, but peace enforced if necessary." "And if we refuse?" the Chancellor asked. "Then you will learn what every human child learns, the story of David and Goliath. Sometimes the smallest stone fells the largest giant." On the alien flagship, General Vexron watched the human fleet. Ships flickered in and out of sight. They moved like shadows that bent the laws of nature. His aide asked in fear, "What are your orders?" Vexron's voice broke. "Stand down, prepare for withdrawal." Admiral Vexthari looked at her screens. Human warships encircled her. Each one a predator, she gave the same order: disarm, retreat. Captain Morok stared at his sensors. Everything he thought he knew of warfare was a lie. Back aboard the Retribution, Ambassador Keller prepared his final report. His voice heavy. "Council members, I recommend acceptance of human terms. We face not primitives. We face a civilization that has prepared for this day for a century. They know us better than we know ourselves." Dr. Zindai stepped forward. Her voice trembled with awe. I have seen their technology. They do not break rules of physics. They write new ones. If they desired, they could conquer the galaxy in months. But they do not wish conquest. They wish something more dangerous. They wish to inspire. They wish every oppressed world to know that resistance is possible. The council chamber grew still. For millennia, their rule rested on fear. Fear that resistance was useless. Fear that power always wins. Humanity had shattered that foundation. President Foster's voice cut through the silence. You are offered a choice unknown until now. To change. To build a galaxy of cooperation, not conquest. To replace oppression with protection. And if we refuse, the Chancellor pressed again. Steve Harrison's eyes hardened. Then you will discover that humans are very skilled at removing obstacles to peace. We have thousands of years of practice. The vote came. For the first time in history, the Council accepted terms dictated by the conquered. The age of the Empire was broken. And a new age had begun, the age of humanity. 6 months later, the galaxy looked different. Ambassador Keller stood on the observation deck of the human diplomatic ship Harmony. Around him, ships of dozens of species moved in convoy. They all traveled toward the galactic core, toward the first peace conference in galactic history. The Valdir were free. They had sent their surviving fleet in celebration. The Kefri had risen in revolt and cast out their governors. Across the spiral arms worlds that had been silent for centuries now shouted independence, and behind every cry stood humanity. Captain Lisa Parker of the Harmony stood beside Keller. Her hair carried streaks of gray. Her eyes carried light. Strange how quickly things change, she said softly. Not strange, Keller replied. Fear is powerful, but hope is stronger. Through the viewport, the human embassy came into sight. A station larger than anything he had ever seen. Built to be neutral ground, built to welcome every species. Around it, human warships maintained silent guard. The message was clear: peace would be protected. Dr. Kevin Turner approached carrying a data pad. He looked cheerful. Ambassador, you may be pleased to hear we have begun sharing basic technologies with the freed worlds. Food production, medicine, clean energy. Keller gave a small smile. Only the basics. Kevin nodded. The advanced systems remain with us until the galaxy proves ready. Signals filled the Harmony as it neared the core. Messages from across the arms. Human ships arriving to defend threatened worlds. Imperial fleets withdrawing without battle. New nations declaring freedom. The Empire was crumbling not from fire but from the spread of hope. In the council chambers, old leaders sat in uneasy silence. They had voted surrender. They had accepted human terms, yet none had expected the pace of change. Systems once loyal to the throne now turned to Earth for protection. On the bridge of the Retribution, Steve Harrison studied reports. Each one told the same story. Humanity had become the shield of the weak. Amy Rodriguez stood beside him. Her voice was proud. Captain, every world we defend strengthens the alliance. Every ally adds strength to our own fleet. Steve nodded, but his eyes remained sharp. With strength comes danger. Old powers do not yield easily. Admiral Patricia Cole knew this truth as well. She stood in Earth Command watching fleets deploy. Her voice carried across the command hall. We must remain vigilant. We fight not only to protect, but to guide. Power without restraint is conquest, and conquest is not our path. The galaxy listened. For centuries, the Empire had preached that fear kept order, that only the strong could rule. But now a new truth spread from system to system, that protection could be stronger than oppression, that unity could be sharper than any blade. Ambassador Keller remembered the old days of arrogance. He remembered standing on the bridge of his flagship staring at Earth with contempt. Now he stood within a human vessel filled with wonders, wonders beyond his people's reach, wonders offered not as weapons but as gifts. Kevin Turner spoke with gentle humor. Humanity has always been clever at building tools to survive. The difference now is that we choose to share. Captain Lisa Parker watched the core grow larger through the viewport. Around the Harmony, thousands of vessels gathered. They carried banners not of war but of hope. For the first time in memory, the galaxy prepared for peace. Not forced peace under an empire's blade, but chosen peace under humanity's shield. Keller whispered to himself, "Strange that it took primitives to teach us what civilization truly means." But he was wrong. Humanity was never primitive. Humanity was patient. Humanity was stubborn. Humanity was dangerous in ways the Empire had never understood. The conference was about to begin, yet already the future was written in the stars. The age of fear was ending. The age of hope had arrived. And at its heart stood humanity, a species that refused to kneel, a species that turned shadows into weapons, a species that looked at the impossible and whispered one word: try. The galaxy had believed humans were weak. The galaxy had believed humans would fall. Instead, the galaxy now followed where humanity led. The Harmony continued its approach. The embassy shone brighter, a new sun rising at the heart of the spiral. And across the stars, the whispers spread, a new truth no longer deniable. The age of the Empire was over. The age of humanity had begun. The Galactic Peace Conference began under the shadow of human warships. Thousands of representatives filled the vast chamber of the new embassy, creatures of every shape and color, some who had once ruled, some who had once been ruled. All carried the same mixture of awe and fear. At the center stood humanity. President Helen Foster addressed them first. Her voice was calm yet unshakable. For millennia, this galaxy has known conquest. You have called it law, you have called it order, but it was only fear. Fear has ended. Today you may choose a new path, a path of cooperation. Ambassador Keller stood to speak. His voice lacked the arrogance it once carried. He admitted truths that once would have condemned him. We believed strength was measured in fire. We believed the weak had no voice. Humanity has shown us that our empire was nothing but a cage. The chamber grew silent. The admission was historic. Steve Harrison observed from the human delegation. His eyes moved across faces filled with doubt. He knew one speech would not end centuries of tyranny, but he also knew the spark of change had already been lit. Dr. Kevin Turner presented human science to the gathered delegates. He showed them clean power cells that ran for decades. He showed them medical advances that healed wounds in moments. He showed them crops that could grow in barren soil. These were not weapons. These were gifts. The message was clear. Humanity had the power to destroy. Instead, humanity offered the power to build. Some delegates wept openly. Some who had watched their worlds burn under imperial fleets now saw a future for their children, a future without chains. But not all hearts were swayed. In the darker corners of the chamber, old generals whispered. Old rulers clenched their teeth. They spoke of rebellion, of striking back, of restoring the empire. Admiral Patricia Cole knew this as well. She had commanded too long to trust silence. She spoke to Steve Harrison in private. They will not surrender their power so easily. They will wait. They will plan. Steve nodded. Humanity will be ready. The galaxy began to shift. Worlds that once cowered now raised banners of freedom. Fleets that once enforced tyranny now splintered. Some joined the new alliance. Some fled into the void. On Earth, crowds gathered in every city. Screens showed the embassy. They watched their leaders speak as equals among the stars. They cheered not only for survival but for victory. Humanity was no longer alone. Humanity was no longer weak. Humanity was no longer hidden. Keller walked the halls of the Harmony with Dr. Zindai. The insect scientist clicked nervously. We were fools. We thought them backward. We thought them fragile. Instead, they were building quietly all along. Keller nodded. We thought fear was eternal. Instead, hope has defeated it. Zindai's eyes glittered with something new. Not fear, not calculation, but belief. Human fleets patrolled the borders of old imperial space. When a governor refused to release control of a world, a human warship appeared in orbit. Not to conquer, but to warn, withdraw, or face consequences. No second warning was ever needed. Word spread across the spiral. Stories of human battleships arriving from the dark. Stories of impossible weapons that could erase entire asteroids with a whisper. Stories of ambassadors who spoke softly yet carried the certainty of iron. And in every tavern, every council hall, every city square, a new idea grew. If humans could stand against the Empire, then perhaps others could stand as well. The galaxy had lived so long in the shadow of fear that many had forgotten how to dream. Now they remembered. Lisa Parker watched the stars from the harmony. She turned to Keller. You know what frightens your old empire most? It is not our ships, not our weapons. It is that we gave back something they worked so hard to kill. Keller's eyes narrowed. Hope. Yes, Lisa said, hope. The peace conference continued for weeks. Treaties were signed. Promises made. For the first time in history, species that once saw each other only as enemies now sat together in agreement. Still the tension remained. Still whispers of defiance moved in the dark. Humanity knew this. Humanity had no illusions. Peace would not be easy. Peace would not be given. Peace would be defended. And that was the difference. For the first time in history, peace had guardians. Humanity had chosen to bear that burden. The galaxy could no longer return to what it was. The Empire had fallen, the Alliance had risen, and the universe itself was learning the lesson written in every human story. That the smallest flame can shatter the deepest darkness. The galaxy was no longer the same. 6 months had become a year, the Empire had fractured, the Council no longer ruled through fear. Worlds once silenced now sang of freedom, and through it all humanity stood watchful, silent guardians at the edge of every star. Ambassador Keller stood once more aboard the Harmony. He looked out at the galactic core. Around the massive human embassy, new ships gathered every day. They came not for conquest. They came for protection, for unity, for hope. He turned to Captain Lisa Parker. A year ago, I believed humanity would kneel. Now I see the truth. Humanity never knelt. Humanity never broke. Humanity waited. And when the time came, humanity rose higher than any of us believed possible. Lisa Parker's voice was steady. We were underestimated. That was our advantage. The galaxy thought us weak. We were only patient. Dr. Kevin Turner joined them. He carried another data pad, his smile easy. We continue to share basic technologies, food, water purification, energy. Worlds once starving are now fed. Worlds once barren now bloom. The galaxy begins to heal. Keller felt something deep within him shift. He had lived as a servant of fear. Now he felt the weight of something new, gratitude. But far beyond the council chambers, not every power was silent. Fragments of the old empire gathered in secret. Admirals whispered of vengeance. Generals plotted in the shadows. They dreamed of rebuilding. Steve Harrison knew this. He stood on the bridge of the retribution, his eyes on the stars, his voice calm. They will test us again. They cannot resist. Amy Rodriguez checked her consoles. Let them test. We are ready. The retribution glided through the dark. Beside it, more human battleships moved. Vengeance, justice, freedom, harmony. The names of ideals forged into steel, each one proof that humanity had not only survived, humanity had prepared. On Earth, children watched the skis. They no longer wondered if they were alone. They no longer feared the dark. They looked up and saw humanity's ships watching over them. They dreamed of stars not as cages but as paths. In the council chamber, President Helen Foster spoke to the assembled delegates. Her voice carried across the galaxy. This is the beginning. The old ways are gone. Conquest has no place here. Oppression has no place here. The galaxy will not be ruled by fear. It will be guided by unity. Some doubted, some feared, but none could ignore the truth. Humanity had defeated the undefeatable. Humanity had turned the hunters into prey. Humanity had changed the rules. Ambassador Keller whispered to himself as the president spoke. Once we believed resistance was futile. Now every world knows it is possible. That lesson will never be forgotten. Outside the embassy, human fleets formed a living shield. Their ships moved in silence, yet every motion spoke of power. They carried not the threat of destruction. They carried the promise of protection. The Empire had once believed fear eternal. Humanity had replaced it with something stronger, with something no weapon could crush: hope. The conference ended. The delegates departed. Yet the echoes of their words spread across the spiral arms: freedom, unity, peace. and behind them always the steady shadow of humanity. On the observation deck of the Harmony, Keller spoke one final time. Strange, is it not, that the galaxy which saw humans as fragile, as weak, as primitive, now sees them as guardians. Lisa Parker answered softly, guardians and builders, and if needed, warriors. Keller looked again at the human ships circling the embassy, silent titans in the void. They had not fired again since that first battle. They had not needed to. Because now the galaxy knew. Now the galaxy remembered. That humanity never surrendered, humanity never yielded, humanity endured. And when the stars themselves turned cold, humanity lit a fire that would never be extinguished. The age of conquest was over. The age of humanity had begun. And the galaxy would never forget.